one more round of applause for my brilliant friend, Katie Ryan. Shamil, Idriss, we are here on this stage today because the organization that you lead, Search for Common Ground, suggests that conflict can be an engine for progress. In the short time that we have today, we're hoping that you can help us understand how we can apply the work that your organization does to the increasingly conflict-laden environment that we're working in DEI, ESG, sustainability, et cetera. I first came across Search for Common Ground because our team at Universal Music Group brought in Shamil's team from Search for Common Ground to help us work through some really tricky political fault lines that had emerged in our organization, which is otherwise a really, really friendly culture. And so what I'm hoping we can do today is give a sense of how we might be able to really apply the work that Search does to the brands that we work for. Many of us have staked our professional careers on the idea that positive impact comes from associating brands with DEI, sustainability, ESG. And those terms are now, in some cases, perceived as too controversial to even bring up in certain boardrooms. So I want to start, Shamil, with giving you a chance to help us understand the kind of work that Search for Common Ground does globally.
Sure. So I'll do it through a quick story from one of the 36 countries in which we maintain teams and operations. I'm going to pick Kenya, the economic hub of East Africa. Many people might remember the bombing of the US Embassy there in 1998. Many years later, there was a terrible attack on a mall, Westgate Mall, that killed more than 70 people. And the government, in response to these attacks that were coming from a violent extremist group, Al-Shabaab, found out that the people who perpetrated the mall attack had infiltrated the country by posing as night fishermen. Night fishing is huge to the economy along the coast, so they banned night fishing. Our Kenyan team, which has diverse across ethnicities, has people who know the police well, some who used to work for them, young people, old people, started mobilizing by bringing the different interest groups together to talk about a better way to deal with this issue than what was happening, which is violence was not going down. Al-Shabaab had a recruiting spree because a bunch of young men didn't have jobs to go to. The human rights groups were suing the government or marching in the streets, and everything was getting worse. Fast forward to, after a lot of hard work, finding creative ways from everything from soccer tournaments to quiet, discreet meetings to eventually being able to bring all these parties together, they came up with one idea, a Muvuvi card. This is an electronic scan card that every fisherman gets now because you have to register, and that every police officer along the coastline has a scanner for. That simple idea that only came up because they were able to come together across their differences rather than face each other as the problem, ended up reopening the entire night fishing economy along the coast after 6 years of it being shut. So that's both who and what we are. Who we are is everywhere we work, our teams represent the dividing lines in those communities. So here in the US, our team is Republican, Democrat, multiracial, interfaith. What they do, they use that diversity of perspectives to turn conflict into cooperation for better solutions for everybody.
This is fascinating. And I think everyone in the room has likely experienced a conflict in our daily work, our daily family lives, our neighborhoods, around. Actually, can I get a show of hands? Who in the room has experienced a conflict related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the war in Ukraine, DEI, ESG, the presidential election? Raise your hand if anywhere in your life these conflicts have shown up. Okay, so this is definitely going to resonate.
I'd like to hang out with the ones who didn't raise their hands. I think I'll live longer, but...
Seriously. So can you help us to apply the principles you're talking about to these kinds of situations?
So the first thing is that we saw the hands that went up. This really affects everybody, and it increasingly will affect everybody personally. But even if you don't want to personalize it, the issue of conflict, how we deal with conflict, how we deal with difference, will be the key to whether the issues that you all are organized around, whether it's climate, eradication of disease, women's rights, anything, whether those issues actually succeed or fail. Because all of those issues, as you all know better than I do, now require cooperation over lines of conflict. You need cooperation between companies in the same industry that otherwise are rivals. You need cooperations between nonprofit advocacy groups and companies. You need cooperation between US and China if we're going to solve any of these issues. And so this is actually the core dynamic of all of the issues that we care about. And briefly, I will just say, there's a lot of reporting, Harvard Business Review and others say the most effective teams are the most diverse teams. What they don't share is that the least effective teams are also the most diverse teams. The key difference is the building of trust. It takes a lot more time to build trust across lines of diversity than it does across lines of similarity. But if and when you do that, those teams will outperform non-diverse teams every single time because they're bringing the best of themselves, different perspectives, different ideas, and more creative solutions emerge, like the team in Kenya. And so that's really the key, whether you're in your corporate boardroom or anywhere else, what are the steps to build that trust? And there are a lot of different ways you can do that.
I was at a gathering of sustainability professionals recently where I was expressing my real rage and frustration around how sustainability always seems very willing to roll over, very willing to cede the terms to the opposing side. And others at the dinner disagreed. They said, as long as, it doesn't matter what banner we're under, as long as we get to do the good work. And so I'm curious what you would think about in a situation like that and how we might think about like applying that trust and pushing back or not.
Pushing back, okay. So let me, we're gonna do a little demonstration of something we call Aikido politics. This is one of 5 tools that we use everywhere where we work, that our teams use. And this is one that's particular to how to deal with opposition or oppression or attacks. Before we do this, and we'll get up, is anyone who actually knows Aikido in the room? No, okay. So I'll explain why we call it Aikido politics in a moment. But there are 2 ways of dealing with aggression or attacks that we all know. The first, go ahead, Dylan's gonna push me, is that one. That's the rollover one, or the, I think she really enjoyed that. That's the what response? Flight. We've all heard of that. Do it again. What's that response? Okay. The first response, if you think the flight response is weak, raise your hand. If you think it's strong, raise your fist. First response, the flight response, is it weak or is it strong? A few people are raising, okay. How about the second response where I push back? Is it weak or is it strong? There are a lot more fists of those who raised. Okay. I would say that both of them are weak because they both allow you, they force you, they require you to respond directly to what somebody else is doing to you. You're either rolling over the way they want you to, or you're exactly copying the engagement with them in the way that they're engaging with you. I don't want to hurt Dylan, but because she started pushing me, I'm doing something that might hurt her. We'll try one more response. Now, the Aikido response comes from the martial art of Aikido, the goal of which is really profound. It's to get both you and your aggressor to a safe space. I'll say it again, to get both you and your aggressor to, if you go on YouTube and you watch an Aikido master, you'll never see them hit anybody. They're constantly deflecting the blows by 5 degrees, sometimes flipping their aggressor, but keeping them safe. And I'm going to tell you a very short story about a very difficult example of this in one of the most difficult environments in the world. The day that the Taliban took over in Afghanistan, the director of our Afghanistan team, who is the only woman leading, the only Afghan woman leading an international organization in Afghanistan today, is our director there. And the day that the Taliban took over, our team was scared, and they said, what are we going to do? And she said, everybody go to let's see if we can get to the office. The women stay home, I'll go, the men go, and we'll see. In front of the office, as there had always been, there was a police checkpoint, except now instead of the police being there were all these soldiers, Taliban soldiers with their machine guns. Zura told our head of programs to go out and say to them the same thing they had said to the police for years. It's really hot, it's August, you don't have any water, there's a spout on the outside of our office. If you need to fill your canteens, you can come and do that. Within an hour, there was a heavy thud on the door. All these men with arms said, thank you so much. Can we pray in your courtyard? Because it's really crowded in the street and there's nowhere for us to pray. That was really awkward. So under Zura's direction, our team said, you know what? This is a community organization. People will be scared if there are a bunch of men with guns here, but we understand your problem. Can you do it for no more than a week, but find another solution? They did that. Every day has been a negotiation like this. It's not giving in, but it's also not fighting. Fighting back will get them killed or thrown in jail. This is Aikido politics at its finest. And if you can do it in Afghanistan under Zura's leadership, we can do it anywhere. We'll have a roundtable lunch later for people who want to hear about the other 4 tools.
Shamil, thank you so much. Thank you.